Hello and welcome back to the SuperCoach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Savage, the coach of the Savage Turbos. Today, I am joined remotely by the 2021 SuperCoach champion, Timmy Moody. How are you, Timmy?
I was fine until I was just making some minor adjustments, and then things just started to fall to chaos. But yeah, look, I'm just on the run, making amends. Yep, we're good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm actually 14 hours away from where we usually are. I'm staying in Broken Hill for work at the moment, but so that's why we're doing it remotely. I figured I'd put my hand up to come to work before the season kicks off, right before the season kicks off, and in between trials. We've just finished our position by position wrap up, so that is very exciting. And must I say, the feedback has been brilliant. So thank you everyone for tuning in. But Timmy, how has your week been? And Supercoach wise, what is your team looking like now?
It's kind of just at a point now where I'm waiting for TLT. There's been a lot of things sort of fall to pieces, which has hurt the structure of what I thought I was doing, and with the balance I thought I was going with. You know, obviously ones that Jaden Campbell going down. There's stuff like yeah, with Brayley as well. Who's some other names that have just recently fallen off that are okay, so Piakura is one that we might not have as well. So just sort of it's thrown out a little bit. I'm just sort of chilling out, man. Just like not panicking, trying to scramble to make a team every day with new information that ends up, ruining my plans. So I'm just going to relax, wait till it gets a bit closer because we are really close now.
Yeah, we're so close, and the trials. It's been a long time without footy, and I understand everybody is getting very excited for the trials. But we're not going to try and bat our eyelids too much, because what we're looking for in the trials is how people's roles are looking and what their kind of their position in the side looks like. We're not necessarily looking at their Supercoach scores, because I think that's just like when people say, "Come on, it's only a trial." It is only a trial, but we do get to see a lot from them, and that is their role in the side and how it's going to look like. All these players where we're considering them to have a massive jump in their average this year, we need to see them signs. So today we're going to do a recap of the trials, and we're going to talk a few antipods here and there. So very excited for next week, but just make sure we've also got... Forgot to put that up. Our overall group code is 281645. So make sure to join that group. I think we have like 720 people in there already. So we'll get that up to 1,000. Hopefully, we have a SC Championship ring up for grabs, and hopefully a few more prizes coming on board with a few other sponsors coming on, hopefully. But let's wrap up the week. You ready?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, so Bulldogs versus Melbourne was on Thursday night, and I think this was nearly the best trial of the weekend. We saw a lot here of what we're expecting coming forward, because obviously the Bulldogs are a massively Supercoach relevant side. Straight in, number one Supercoach player of the week, Sam Hughes. 13 tackles, 15 runs, 140 metres for 36 Supercoach points. Obviously, we're not looking at Supercoach points. We're not looking at the stats, but for him, it was the eye test. He looked like he came on, brought a lot of energy. And just with all the talk around him, I think he's someone who is going to look like a kind of Max King type player of 2022. And that's very exciting. With their forward depth, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts come TLT.
Yeah, what I really like about him is just how big and rangy he is. What I noticed when he was getting in tackles, he seemed to have his hands free a lot, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to just throw the ball out the back and offload it. That trial was nice as well. I think he's going to be a super coach friendly prop.
Yeah.
Excited about him. So the hype's well and truly for a good reason.
Yeah, and the role he's going to play, he's going to be a big part of that forward pack. Liam Knight looked ginger, and I know it's only a trial once again, but we're only looking at what we see. It looks like he is probably the second dominant front rower in that pack, so I think he will get good enough minutes. I think the question is here, can you play him as your front row forward number 2?
You probably could if you were really stacked elsewhere, which I think you probably would be if you're doing that. I kind of feel more confident having him as my third guy to sort of rely on to cover my other props when they might have buys or if there's some sort of injury or something like that. But yeah, I feel like I'd be confident enough to play him after watching a game or two. Like even that trial looked enough indication
Well,
that he's playable.
the try actually got pulled back. So,
Oh, that's right. It
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
he dropped it, but they actually went to a what do you call it, an obstruction beforehand.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah, that's
the
right.
fact it looks like he's gonna score, like he'll definitely score more and score throughout the season. So hopefully we can see a bit more. We actually bad on our part. We haven't checked team lists at the moment, so I wanted to see what the team list looked like. We'll have a look at that very shortly. But Drew Hutchison comes in at 354,000 at centre wing, played halfback, and here are the standout points of him playing halfback. It looks like he's the front runner at the moment. 130 points, 48 points, and 28 points in halfback last year. He had a base of 32, 50, and 44. What are your thoughts on Drew Hutchison? Is he in your side?
Yeah, I plugged him in straight. He was one of the changes I made because I was stressing out. One of the changes I made. I don't have Cleary again now currently, so I keep coming in and out of my side. But I plugged Hutchison at halfback. I'd prefer to have him at centre wing. But just because I didn't know what I wanted to do with that second spot there, I just thought I'll put him there for now and it fit with the budget. I think it's a good option for the Dogs. Just a little bit of a guy, it's a bit more mature than Sexy Legs. He's come from a really awesome side in the Roosters. I think he'll offer him a bit. He's got some pretty good footy in him too, and I think the Roosters played well when he was in the halves last year. So the thing was, those Sexy Legs came on in the second half and had a really good game as well.
Is this Sexton?
Yep.
Okay, so obviously I said we didn't look at team list, which is a massive drop of the ball on our behalf. We're thrown out of complete proportion being remote. It's not usually our style, but the Bulldogs have named their side. It is Blake Taff for fullback, Wilson and Adakar on the wings, Bronson Sherry and Stephen Crichton in the centres. So we'll talk about Bronson Sherry very shortly. Matt Burton and Drew Hutchison in the halves, Max King and Posa Farmasuli in the front row, Reed Marnie at hooker, Kick Out and Preston on the edges, Salmon at number 13, Kurt Mann, Sam Hughes, Josh Curran and Curtis Moran. Lock out the bench. There's heaps of Supercoach news here, but I guess we'll start on Bronson Sherry, who was the next one in. 345,000 on the weekend. He looked very strong. 61 with a try assist and a try, and hopefully these trials is just getting them extra Ks in the legs that he needs to be ready for round one.
Yeah, and he didn't play out the whole game too, so that's a good score in the time that he played. I thought he looked pretty good. Be happy enough to play him in my centre wings to start off for the first few rounds, I'd say.
At 345,000, I think it's a very good option. I think the thing is here with all these Bulldogs options making themselves available, how many is too many? Like myself having Karaz. Actually, Karaz is someone who's missed out on that start. So maybe he comes in on the wing potentially for Blake Wilson, or he goes in at centre for Bronson Cherry. Maybe it's a fight out between them two, but yeah, how many is too many? And is Drew Hutchison, Bronson Cherry, Josh Curran, Karaz, is that too much to be playing in your top 17, especially considering we don't know how they're going to turn out?
Sounds like a lot. How many did you list? 5 or 6?
4 or 5.
Okay. I'm just looking at mine. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Here's what it is. So, I'm fine with it. You're probably going to turn some of these guys into players from other teams in coming weeks anyway.
Yeah.
So not too stressful.
There also is a few other options that have emerged. Jamin Salmon looked very good in the lock area for
Mm.
SuperCoach. He is at a very short kind of price at the moment. He is available at second row and 5'8", I'm pretty sure. Would you consider starting Jamin Salmon, maybe especially in your second row kind of slot where Piakura's gone down?
Well, I was thinking maybe with the dynamic of their side, who knows, come round one, maybe they don't want to start with that what was it, Farmasili? Farmasili,
Farmasuli,
I think
yeah.
it's, yeah, or Hughes. Maybe they go with Curran at prop and stick the bloke we're talking about at lock.
Salmon.
Yeah, because he looked good.
He
Week
looked
gutter.
he looked great.
Yeah, so I think you could you could even have Curran playing to the middle off the bench as well. I reckon maybe that could be an indication that he's definitely at least their backup guy for that, I think. But I like the look of it.
Yeah,
It's like I think one of the commentators made the comment or something that he's learned a bit from watching Isaiah Yo at the Panthers
yeah. Well,
over the years.
317,000. He's available in center wing and second row. So they're spots where we could really use them type plays, especially in the center wing, because on the other side of the park, Kale Iro hasn't been named in the starting side, and he's one of the most popular players in Supercoach at the moment. And I think after looking at these team lists, a lot of people are going to drop that. But yeah, I think it's just the case of how many Bulldogs is too many. Sherry, Hutchin, Salmon, Kraz. I mean, you don't need to start with Kraz. Then there's Hughes. I think they all provide different ways of providing their points. So I think that's where you kind of look a bit better in that sense. But yeah, I think this just means that maybe Josh Curran is a sell.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It depends. If he's still starting at lock, I think I'd still want to have him in my side. So if you're trying to cut down those numbers, for me, I'd cut Carraz out there because you could just go sideways to another guy at a similar price in a different team that's probably going to offer pretty similar.
Yep.
If you're worried about having too many, but yeah, like you said, they all do different things in their side. I don't think it really matters if you've got 4 or 5 to start the year. It's not like they're. It'd be better if they were attacking juggernaut. You wouldn't be as worried about it. But
Yep.
yeah, whatever, it's fine.
Awesome. So, moving on to the Melbourne Storm, who they versed. Pappenhausen was the one everyone was looking at. He looked good. Issue was he wasn't goal kicking. Jonah Pezza kicked goals over him. So with the tough draw, we weren't keen on him anyway. But now the fact he
I
isn't,
was.
oh
He was
yeah,
in my side.
you were, but the
Yeah.
fact he isn't goal kicking anymore, I think that just puts a line through him early on in the season at least.
Yeah, look, I thought it did initially. Seen other people saying it puts a line through him, but I'm just thinking, like, still at that price at 600 and something K, I think he scores that, in a decent game anyway without kicking. So if you need to go for a value sort of guy and you can't afford it, one of those guys like Turbo who's about 200K more, because I've already got like Ponga there as my main guy. If I can't find that extra 200K, I could be still happy enough to have him in my side. And yes, it'd be better if he was kicking, but I still think he can potentially even make money still. I still think he can score 70s.
I think with the early draw and early buy, I really think he is an avoid now, especially without the goal kicking.
Yeah, I think
and
my first thought is I would prefer a different fullback now, but
yeah,
it depends whether I can make it happen.
I actually think maybe a Will Kennedy, we talked about him last week, maybe starting with him and then going down to Pappy, because you're very happy to cut someone like Will Kennedy, whereas all these other options you kind of don't, like, say they've looked good but haven't.
It's not bad, Will Kennedy. My first thought was another big gun. I kind of wanted to have those two big gun just on, maybe like a turbo or something like that was my first thought. Yeah, and there's still like Teddy that I don't have. I'm not as keen on Teddy as what you are.
I love me Teddy.
There's also Latrell I don't have. So there's a few decent big name ones that I could look at. But yeah, I don't mind Will Kennedy at a cheaper price. And we did look at the idea of, him scoring pretty well early.
Yeah.
Being realistic.
with the Storm, Pappenhausen was the only watch on that weekend, but they've named a better strength side this week with Pappenhausen at fullback, Warbrick and Coates on the wings, Remus Smith and Nick Meaney in the centres, Pezzett and Hughes in the halves, Tui Kamika and Josh King in the prop, Harry Grant at hooker, Kane Bradley and Elias Katoa on the edges, Trent Liero at lock, and Welch, Joe Chan, Tristan Power and Tyrone Wishart on the benches. Sean Bloor is in the extended bench. But the one that jumps out there is Kane Bradley. He's available at centre wing and 238,000. So if he keeps that spot, he's definitely a watch. I don't know much about him, but I'll be keeping a close eye this weekend.
Yeah, these trials do seem to get a little bit closer to what the team will look like for round one, but still, I think it could be just giving him a go while Liero or Bloor maybe gets a bit more, maybe they need a bit more time before round one or something. I don't know. Are they there? Were either one of them coming off the bench? You said Bloor was.
Bloor is on the extended bench, number 20. So I did actually say early in the preseason that maybe because he came late and hasn't had a full preseason with Melbourne, Bellamy might be hesitant to put him in there straight away. So
They still can use up to 27 players, can't they, in this trial as well? I think they did that in the last trial.
Yeah. So they've named 28. So they'll be able to use them all.
Okay.
So Bloor will get a go. But I think it's between them two for the position, considering Liero's starting at lock, which is very good signs for someone like Bloor. Moving on to the All-Stars game, Xavier Willison really stood out at 265,000. Something you noticed on the Sunday game with the Broncos. Payne Haas was interviewed post-game and asked about who is going to replace Tom Flegler's Flair.
Well, he said who would they like to be his replacement? And he sort of mentioned everybody's name, everyone's names, and then he went, "Oh yeah, Xavier Willison." But my second thought to that, Sabs, was he wasn't at that game, so he was probably just watching the other blokes that were going around, doing the right thing, naming all of them, and then and Xavier Willison, who's not here, but yeah, of course him too. You know what I mean? So I thought maybe you can't read in too much to that.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's probably going to be Jensen anyway.
I think that suggests that Willison is probably a bench guy who's going to help through the middle. But 265,000 looked very strong, scored a try, scored a few points. So he's someone I pretty much put in my side that day because I've been hearing good things about him. And watching that game, I think that just solidified that maybe this is his breakout season. Trindle got man of the match with 63 points in SuperCoach for 2 try assists with kicks. Hines was kicking goals, but I think the positive thing was it didn't take away from Trindle's attacking finesse. We both had him in our sides in our halves preview. I've still got him in there, and I like the balance of my side with him in there. And the signs I saw on the weekend, I'm very happy with. So Trindle at 439, halfback /5'8". He's still going with him.
It might be worth doing once the centre wingers that don't work out for me, then moving Drew Hutchison down to centre wing and then going with possibly this guy. I'd probably need to find 150 to 300k to do that though. But yeah, that's all good. I do like the look of him. Hey, I thought he was pretty dominant.
Yep.
It did make me a little bit nervous about Nico, but I thought they'll both have their moments.
Yep.
And still, when it's a big play, Nico will want the ball. So,
well, Nico had 1 try assist and still scored 73 points. So, I think the fact
that's such a Nico thing.
Yeah.
Hey, I was thinking he looked real quiet. Wasn't really impressed by him, but if he's scoring that big in games where you're not, that impressed, then it's happy days.
I'm not worried at all. I think Craig Fitzgibbon is a good coach, and what he'll do is, he'll bring Trindle into the game, but he's not going to take away from Nico having them absolute blinders, because it's them blinders that pretty much put teams to the sword. And if he's restricted at all, then they're at a point where they could lose games if they're not getting the best out of Nico. One last player from this game that really stood out Supercoach wise, Brendan Smith. had a bit of talk about him in the preseason, massive hype last preseason, but he starts at a similar price this year. I think with Brendan Hands having a pretty solid performance for Parramatta, it's probably not someone you want to really consider straight away. But I mean, you could still have him. He's at the price where it's not super awkward.
It's not super awkward. But yeah, I think you just need to temper your expectations on him. Like I started with him last year, and if he doesn't get the minutes and doesn't get one of those attacking plays, then it can be a really wonky sort of 30 to 40, and you're just not happy with it as your main hooker. So yeah, but he did look like he was going looking and burrowing about. But yeah, I think I'd rather go with someone that just gives me a bit more peace of mind. A more expensive bloke and then a cheaper guy.
For sure. Manly versus Roosters. Actually, no, sorry. Newcastle versus Sharks. So Dylan Lucas scored a double for 69. Looked very good. What are your thoughts on Dylan Lucas? He got named at starting edge again this week with Frizzell in the side. Also, there is Jed Cartwright is on the extended bench. I'll read out their team now. Kalen Ponga at fullback, Tuala and Marju on the wings, Gagai and Best in the centres, Tyson Gamble and Hastings in the halves, Safidi and Thompson at front row, Phoenix Crossland at hooker, Frizzell and Lucas in the edges, Adam Elliott and Jack Cogger on the bench, Safidi, Hetherington and Kai Pearce-Paul on the bench. Dylan Lucas looked really good, 500k available in centre wing. I think it's very tempting.
Yeah, because it's only a little bit more than I sit there going, I don't want to spend that much at second row, but I've got all these 450k guys, so I guess 50k more is not that much. And like on that left edge, yeah, I think it could be a really good thing. Just the fact that he scored those 2 tries is an indication that they're running plays for him there. Yeah, I think he's going to be a super coach option this year for sure if he keeps that spot. And if you don't start with him, I think we might want to get him at some point. So might have to think about it a bit closer, hey?
I think for someone like me, he's a potential option to downgrade Karaz to, just because you bank 100k from doing it. And I think in the centre wing, we really need to find 6 playable players every week, because I don't know if the cheapies are going to fall our way. So I think I'm going to put him in my centre wing. And I think in this day and age, I've kind of shied away from doing that in the past. I really think of the past putting a second rower who plays second row in your centre wing. I think them days are gone, because I think the centre wing is a high upside position, especially late in the year. So I don't think you want to have that position stuck with a second row with not much ceiling. But I think early...
I don't mind it. I like it. I'm just picturing it like on what it would look like in a side, and it just kind of seems nice.
Feels safe, doesn't it?
Especially, if he's good for 50 at least, you know what I mean? Which I reckon he's good for 50 at least if he's without any major attacking plays. So that'd still look mad.
I like
it.
To
boost that up.
Another note here I have from the game, Cogger came on and looked very strong. He was so good. He kicked a 40-20, scored a try and set up a try, I'm pretty sure. He goal kicked, though. Kicked 3 goals out of 3. If he wins a halves position, that takes away from Ponga, and Ponga potentially doesn't kick goals. He's named on the bench this week with Gamble and Hastings in the side, but I think he's really knocking the door down.
Yeah, he is knocking the door down. I kind of get the vibe that they might just stick with the structure of the side that got him into 5th last year. And if things don't work out, or maybe Gamble or I was thinking first Gamble or Hastings aren't on their game, maybe they sort of switch things about. There's a lot they could do. They could put Hastings to lock. They could have even like Elliott coming off the bench to play 9, or starting at 9 with Crossland to come off the bench and spell Elliott if Jaden Brayley's not about for the first couple of weeks. But yeah, I think they'll give give Campbell and Hastings a normal go. But yeah, I reckon he'd be a nice addition to that side.
Yeah.
You could have, Campbell sort of play he could even come off the bench, play a few different roles through the middle or whatever even.
Yep. I've got another note here as well for Jaden Beryl. He was someone who I really liked the look of. I know you were pretty high on him a couple of years ago, but being stuck behind Blake Brayley, it's been pretty hard. But I think what I got from this game, if Blake Brayley goes down at all, it looks like Fitzgibbon likes his 80-minute hookers. He's straight in my side. He's an NRL player, Jaden Beryl, in my opinion. So he's someone I think you definitely got to watch out for. The Sharks have named a pretty full strength side, but people to note they've named pretty much their 1 to 17. But Oregon Kafusi starts at number 8 for $343K in the front row. So maybe he's a watch, depending on how things go. But their bench from 14 to 17, they're all middles. So I don't think you could touch any middle from the Sharks. Cameron McInnes, I don't know where Dale Finucane is. Obviously, he's probably just waiting till the start of the season. But yeah, I'll be interested to see how that trial goes against the Bulldogs. That'll be a massive watch. But moving on to the Manly versus Roosters trial, Terrell May picked up exactly where he left off. He came off the bench, 18 tackles, 14 runs, 2 tackle busts, 2 offloads for 43 SuperCoach points. I think this season we're going to have to kind of shake the stigma of being off someone who's named on the bench, because I think he's going to come off the bench and do exactly what he did last year. And I think we're just going to have to just swallow our pride and be okay with that.
Yeah, he's not in my side at the moment. He was definitely someone I was starting with, but because I was really keen on starting with like 4 pretty solid props in the front row. But then now that Xavier Willison and Sam Hughes are looking pretty good, and even maybe Henry from the Panthers is another guy there, I think I can go a bit thinner at the front row and spend my money elsewhere.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, sweet. He's in my side at the moment, and he's probably someone that can be downgraded. I'm not going to lie, but I like the look of him. Supercoach relevant game. Tupanua started on the right edge at 398,000. Played very solid. 54 points, scored a try. The issue with Tupanua is now Sil Wong. There's also Angus Crichton. So I think with the emergence of Tupanua having a solid game, and they haven't been named this week, we'll find out next week at Team List. But I think there's going to be some sort of minute sharing going on there. And it's going to be really awkward to play with, where all these other options are coming out playing at 80 minutes, like your Dylan Lucases, your Pierre Coras, who's actually injured. We'll talk about that shortly. But I think maybe the Roosters' back row spot is maybe in a void. And if one of them do come out and absolutely brain it, maybe it's worth jumping from someone who's not doing as well to one of these guys. But I don't know. It just feels like that spot's not going to be relevant. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so currently in all preseason, I haven't had any of these 3 Roosters in my side. I've just sort of thought once I get a better indication, then I'll decide if I want to plug them in. But yeah, there's 6 spots there in second row, and it's hard to fit a lot of these mid-rangers that we're all keen on. So yeah, he like this. If it is Wong or Sotili or whoever, that might be the one I miss out on, just to see what the security's like. If it is, after 2-3 rounds, looks like they've locked it down. If it is an 80-minute roll, or if it's 50 or 60 or something like that, then I'm not going to have to rush to get him in. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. I'm not too stressed about missing out on them, because you can get them if you need them, and it looks good. But yeah, I like what you said about Lucas and stuff having bigger minute roles, and Wayne and all that. Yeah, so
for sure. Teddy looked good as well. So someone I've been pretty high on in the preseason. I'm quite keen on him. Moving on to the Canberra versus Parramatta game. Another cheapie has emerged. James Schiller had an absolute blinder, scored one of the best tries you could see. off a 20-meter tap. He's 238K, and now he comes into contention for that centre wing spot. I'll read out their team this week. So Alba Hopewadi at fullback, Utala Osama on the wing, Timoko and Schiller in the centres, Xavier Savage on the other wing. Kaya Weeks and Ethan Strange are in the halves again. Josh Papali'i and Emre Gula in the front row. Danny Levi starting hooker. Hudson Young and Elliot Whitehead on the edges. Morgan Smithies locks out the scrum. Tom Starling, Nick Kotrick, Trey Mooney, and Jed Stewart are in the reserves. Chevy Stewart gone, number 18. So that is an interesting watch there. But James Schiller, if he gets the spot, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's all very just between the Bulldogs and the Raiders, cheapies trying to work out which one of them are going to land and stuff. It's pretty doing my head in. I think, yeah, if he's available, then I might snap him up, but it's going to be hard because I don't know. Yeah, there's so many of them. I'm sort of locked in my mind that I'm really keen on Chevy Stewart, but if he doesn't play, then obviously I'm not going to have him on my side to start with, and then I'll look elsewhere. But Savage, I haven't had him in my side yet, and I don't think I'll go with it. I think it'll be
a 350K winger for Canberra.
I mean, if he's scoring tries, it's mad.
Yeah,
but he's got there'll be a lot of 20s and stuff. You might get forced into playing him. I don't think it's a terrible. It's kind of more closer to a mid-ranger, but yeah, I prefer some of the other options. So I don't think I'm too keen on him unless the Raiders' attack starts looking electric.
Yep.
Which I'm not particularly today.
Weeks was solid, so was Strange. They didn't have perfect games, but it looks like they're fighting it out for the position once again this week with both of them named. So I think that's more of a TLT thing. I think it's clear now you can only have one of them, not both of them. So I think that's something to note. For Parramatta, Sean Russell looks solid. So maybe he's someone to potentially look into. He is pretty expensive for what he is, but I think he's just someone who could potentially jump out of the ground. He's 440K, so I think he's someone who could potentially jump out this year and move on to that next tier of Supercoach player. But with the Parramatta Eels, they are playing this week, and their team is as follows. Clint Gutson at fullback, Sevo and Russell on the wings. It bloody died on me, so I've just opened it up again. In the centres, it's... Just give me 1 second. Bailey Simonson and Will Penasini. Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses in the halves. Regan Campbell-Gillard and Junior Paulo in the front row. Joey Lussick at hooker. Brendan Hands at 14. Sean Lane and Cartwright on the edges, and Jermaine Hopgood at 13. Rumu Greg, Joe Offengawe, and Kelman Tuolangi. The thing that stands out there is dual hooker. So with Jaden Brayley going down, in doubt for round one, dual hooker for the Parramatta Eels. That's a tactic we can no longer rely on. And yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, they gave the start to Hands last week. Maybe they're just giving the start to
but
Joey this week.
Lussick didn't play on the bench last week.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, maybe
obviously we're not looking too much.
There's a lot of it's a trial. Maybe they don't want to maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe Hands is at closer to 80 minutes and Joey's not, so Joey's going to start and Hands is there to back it up.
And also, it could be Ryan Madison is at number 18, so he probably slots in there somewhere. So they're probably just figuring out the missing pieces. All right, cool. So that was a pretty good trial. I didn't mind that one. So moving on to the Rabbitohs versus...
Who will kick for the Raiders?
Sorry?
Is my question. Do you know who's going to kick for the Raiders?
Fogarty.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't plot the course. I'm sitting there.
Yeah. Rabbitohs versus Dragons. Dragons looked okay. They struggled in attack, but Bird was good. Lomax on the wing is strange, but hopefully maybe they correct that up. what were your thoughts on the game? The Rabbitohs didn't really name a full strength side, so it doesn't really matter. The Rabbitohs have named a pretty much third string side this week, whereas the Dragons, they are at near full strength. They've got Tyra Sloan back at fullback, Lomax and Ravalawa on the wings again, Sully and Bird in the centres, Flanagan and Hunt in the halves, Little at hooker, Laurie and Molo at front row, Tom Eisenhuth and Jaden Sewer in the edges, Jack DeBellin at lock, Jesse Marsky, Viliama Fafita, Murdoch Masilla and Fatala Mariner on the bench. Looking at how St. George played on the weekend, I think Flanagan is maybe someone that is out of my side just because I don't know if they're going to get enough attack, and he didn't kick goals. So, I kind of expect him to get a 50 average with goal kicking, but without it, who knows what it could be. But Tom Eisenhuth starts at the second row once again, so he's a potential centre wing option. What were your thoughts from the trial, and anything that stood out for you?
Couple of notes. I don't know how many of them are that super coach relevant to start the year. The one that's probably the most is Totola. I thought looked good. There's a few people. Mikey, one of them's been quite keen on him. I thought he had really nice runs. He had nice footwork. I feel like that price for something 100K, I prefer him over May, I think, at this point. I don't have him in my side at the moment. I've still got Fuego there, but I wasn't that impressed with Fuego, so I'm probably going to get rid of him. I noticed not well on that game, but Fuego was passing the ball a bit. Totola looks good, so I might put him in my side, actually. Sewer, Jaden Sewer, I thought he was looking pretty good too. Mullet was sick, growing that in the off-season, and there was a few offloads in his game, which I liked, and Kolomatangi on the left looked very, very lethal, so I think he's going to be someone we're all aiming to get at some point pretty early on. Trying to upgrade some of these mid-ranges to the likes of Kolomatangi.
Well, Cody Walker wasn't playing on the weekend, so I don't think he'll be a factor. I think if Dean Hawkins plays, then maybe he uses his back row more, but Cody Walker's more renowned for going out wide rather than to his...
I reckon they've got that there. He might be a bit of a decoy runner here and there on plays, but I reckon he'll get his moments.
Yeah.
I think it could be a good thing. I reckon we'll be keen on him.
He definitely will, but he has played left edge back row in the past, and he moved over to the right and actually averaged better. I'll look into the numbers and get that sorted once team lists hit next week. But Kepi, Totola, and Mawali looked good. 45 for Kepi, 35 for Totola, Mawali 72 with a try. Maybe this is the year for the cheap front rowers that didn't hit last year. Maybe this is the year where they all come out, Mawali in particular. I've seen a lot of hype about Kepi. He's had his opportunities, big minute opportunities in the past for Manly and hasn't proved it. And he's always done this in the preseason, kind of showed a lot of hope and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think he is that player. I think he's just more of a dog in defense. So he's someone at 385,000. I don't think I can touch considering all these other options are presenting themselves. So, not very big on Kepi in particular. But
yeah, me neither.
Yeah, the Rabbitohs named a second string side as well for this week. Warriors versus the Tigers. So news come in today that actually I'll move on from that just quickly. But RTS looks strong. News come in today that CNK is in doubt for round 1, so potentially RTS to fullback. Are you keen?
I wasn't keen just because when we looked into the numbers of RTS, he wasn't that amazing at fullback compared to some of the other options. I think he only averaged sort of around the 70s was his peak. That's just off the top of my head. But yeah, he looked really good, like returning to NRL. Again, didn't miss a beat. Just big. He looked just like a bigger athlete than all the other younger dudes that were all emerging. You know what I mean? And just little tip on he did to set up a try was nice. Defense, he was smashing a few blokes out there too. Not holding back in the trials at all. I'm kind of keen. So this is the dilemma I'm at now. I'm sort of there's so many nice centres. Like you got Hamaso, you've got RTS. They're all pretty similar price. Herbie. There's a few of them. I could rattle off a few more, but my mind's not working. But there's a lot of them now. I wrote a list of them somewhere in my scribbling notes over the weekend. But yeah, I think I do like him. I wouldn't talk anyone out of him.
That they've named their team list this week, and Tane Tuapiki is named at fullback, and RTS is still at centre. So I think the fact that RTS is going to be their centre this year, I think Webster wants to keep it that way by the look of it. But things could change if CNK is more of a long-term injury. We saw that with Tommy Turbo and Ruben Garrick last year. If a player is out for 1 to 2 weeks, they don't want to mess up the cohesion of the side. I think they want to fix that. But Capo is named to start, and Niakura is on the bench. Niakura is not really SuperCoach relevant. But on the other side of the park, Coruscant kicking goals. We expected someone like Aiden Caesar or Jaden Sullivan to kick the goals, but Appy took the tee, which was a shock to all of us. Something we mentioned on the weekend, maybe Benji isn't really sure about his halves, and Coruscant is just that guy that probably needs to get the reps at goal kicking as the backup goal kicker if someone does go down, whereas these other kickers are pretty much full-time kickers. Maybe he doesn't know who his halves are. Sullivan and Caesar were named again this week, so I want to see who kicks goals this weekend because I think there'll be a bit more clarity there, but maybe he just doesn't want to give the spot away yet because it's all up for grabs. Appy is the only one who is locked into that side. He's said that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, could be interested in him just with the kicking. Hey, just that little bit of extra something might be instead of like if you like. Yeah, it depends where you could. You sometimes you like trying to take $100K off somewhere to make everything else work, and sometimes that's hooker that ends up having a sacrifice. So yeah, I've known that I've gone from Harry Grant down to like Cheese up to JMK. At some point 300K guys. So could settle somewhere in the middle there on Appy with the kicking. Don't mind it.
Awkward thing is they have the bye round 1. Very awkward. So we don't know if a bench hooker is going to be named. But it's definitely something to keep an eye out on. I'll definitely be interested to see who kicks the goals this weekend. But yeah, very, very keen on that once again. Lachlan Galvin is named at number 14. That's something to note. Lachlan Galvin could take some minutes from Appy, or maybe he comes on to play halves. And if that's the case, these halves, they don't know who the goal kicker is. Moving on to the Cowboys versus the Broncos. Walsh scored 111. Can't read too much into that. The Cowboys didn't play a full-strength side. Pierre Cora scored a double for 76. Looks like he's in doubt for round 1. He's staying away from Pierre Cora after the injury concern. I think with 2 tries for 76 with line breaks, some people have been concerned, but I don't give a shit. He didn't play 80 minutes. He will play 80 minutes on a weekend. 12 points in base, apparently, in the first 40 minutes. It's not a concern, in my opinion. I think that's the type of player he is. He's a destructive player, and he will get the tackle bust. People are saying that the tries he scored, they're counting the tackle bust away from him. So 12 points in base. So he gets all these other attacking stats. I'm actually... It just makes me more excited for him, to be honest, that the fact that they are going to him in set plays.
Yeah, I like it. The only thing that turns me off is if he is not available, obviously, and if he is going in a bit injured. But yeah, I thought he looked awesome.
The Broncos didn't name a full-strength side this week. Haas had a shocker, but he's a big game player. He doesn't really give a shit about the trials. Sorry, the Cowboys named a full-strength side this week. Last week, Semi Valame was someone who did stand out. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes. But reading out the
His
cow,
kick returns were very nice.
yeah.
Yeah, just elusive, just sort of hard to sort of looked like he was going to bloody, you know, break the line every time he sort of was returning the ball.
So they've got Scott Drinkwater at fullback, Kyle Felt and Murray Tuolungi on the wings. So Valame's gone. Holmes and Laybut in the centres, Tom Dearden and Chad Townsend in the halves, McLean and Tamalolo up front, Reece Robson, Helam, Lukey and Nanai on the edges, Ruben Cotter at lock, Granville, Neem, Hess and McIntyre on the bench. The one that stands out here, Helam Lukey, we talked about him. I think Piakura, if he is injured, it's a straight swap to Helam Lukey, in my opinion. And if Piakura is not injured, then I think you probably got to fit Helam Lukey into your side somewhere because we spoke about it in the second row episode. He averages about 75 when he plays above 60 minutes.
One person I wanted to mention is someone not named there, but Finu Feki Fuiaki. If something happens to one of those second rowers, he'll come into the side and he'll be straight into my side. He was looking a lot trimmer and just like a real wrecking ball, hard to handle. So like the look of him this year.
Very good. I'm actually a big fan of him too. So it's funny, every time an edge back rower at the Cowboys gets injured, you're like, yes. Actually, funny thing is, Luciano isn't there. Like, he hasn't been officially released from the club either. So it's funny how that's kind of working at the moment. But yeah, Cowboys, Tamalolo named at front row, 440K. Are you still keen on him? I think I've grown on the idea of him a little bit, but still not that keen.
I'm off him now. I was real keen on him when I was sort of leaning more towards having 400K guys in the front row at the start of the season because I didn't want to. That was all because I didn't want to get stuck with those two Potter reserve props.
Yeah.
But the cheapy props are starting to look a little bit more promising now. So yeah, no room for Lolo.
For sure.
I hope he has a good season.
Dolphins versus who they played? Dolphins versus
They played the Titans.
Dolphins versus the Titans. Sorry, I had it there. I thought it was the Titans, but I was like, hang on. Hammer is at fullback. Azarko on the wing with Bostock, Tessie New and Farnworth in the centres. Isaiah Katoa and Sean O'Sullivan. Jesse Bromwich and Tom Flegler up front. Jeremy Marshall-Kin at hooker. Felice Kafusi and Ewan Aitken in the edges. Tom Gilbert at lock. Nichols, Tafare, Avarillo and Kurt Donahue on the bench. Tessie New and Bostock look good, and they've won that position again this week. So, I mean, Jake Avarillo was someone I was really hot on. That bye turned me away from him, but it looks like these guys are fighting it out for a position, and they could both potentially get it.
Yeah, I'm not really looking at any of those guys at the moment myself. I don't know. I think I was just turned off Bostock for some reason. Someone, I think I saw a stat or someone had an opinion, and it just has put me off him. But I might have to look a bit closer if he's, named, and there's only a couple other sort of decent, cheapy centre wingers there. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the Titans, they named a second string side, so not much to look into there, but they've got a full strength side this week. Keanu Keeney at fullback. Some interest there from some people who have messaged me. Carl Piera and Philip Sammy on the wings. Brian Kelly and AJ Brimson in the centres. Foran and Boyd in the halves. Fortawaker and Keenan Palacia at front row. Verrills at hooker. Jacob Alec and Beau Fermor on the edges. Tino at lock. Chris Randall, Jermaine Jolliffe, Aaron Clark, and Cleese Haas on the bench. The one that sticks out here, there's some massive SuperCoach implications for this one. So obviously last week the news broke afterwards that Dave Fafita and Jaden Campbell potentially not back till round 5. This means Beau Fermor is potentially going to play on the left edge, and Keanu Keeney gets that fullback position. So Beau Fermor, has your mind changed on him? The fact that you might get a 5-game sample size at left edge, but with Fafita coming back, it's also a risk. It's a massive watch this weekend to see where he lands.
Well, he's one bloke I haven't moved out of my side all year. Even when I thought he might still be on the ride. I was still happy enough at that price to go with him. Never owned him before, and I've always sort of, when other people have had him, I've sort of thought, geez, he's impressive. Why don't I look at him a bit closer? So I sort of want to go with him. And if he's going to play on the left, I feel very good about that.
For sure. And Keenan Palacia named at front row starting. I had my suspicions it would happen. Obviously, it's just trial, but I'm getting my hopes up that at 365K, he is someone who is massively underpriced because he had a lot of 16s and 15s last year from having 15-minute games. And we talked about it in the Front Row podcast. We're very keen on him, and the fact he is getting that starting position with a guy like who's on the bench, with a guy like he's right here. It's loading. Chris Randall and Aaron Clark on the bench. Yeah, they play through the middle, and Tino can shift up front. But I think someone like him is more likely to just have his minutes, and they're not going to chop into him too much. I guess it is a bit concerning. It kind of is a 4 middle bench when you look at it. But Keenan Palacia, I'm very excited, and I'm seeing a lot of clips online. He's very involved in the club, and he brings a massive energy to the team.
Well, that's a good thing. If he's, a team guy, then they, want to put him in the team, and that's what we need if he's in our side. I've got him in my team at the moment, but I feel like if I did have to sacrifice someone because there was a better, presenting someone that came along that looked a bit better. Like I still like, say, Wong, for example, or Satili. I don't have them in there, but I might end up plugging them in instead of him. They got a bit more upside, but he's a little bit cheaper than those, and he does have that cure as well, which is cool. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the upside. I think it's a bit of a.
I think in front row there is no upside, so it's kind of, it's not how you got to
Yeah,
look
so
at
that's
it.
why, because I've got him in second row, that's why I'm like, I think I'd rather try get someone that might possibly make 200K a bit quicker.
Yeah. Jacob Alec is named at second row at 260K, so I mean, Fafita's back in round 5, so it's a bit risky if he does get that starting spot. But Keanu Keeney, I've heard a lot of good stuff that he is training the house down, and he was actually competing with Jaden Campbell for that fullback spot. We'll get 4 or 5 games with 4 or 5 rounds with a bye in between, so he'll probably get 4 games with 2 price rises. The fact that he's only available at fullback, I think that's the reason I've kind of told people you can't really do it, because you're going to want to move him on to someone premium as soon as Jaden Campbell is back in that side. Maybe you can go straight to Jaden Campbell at that point when Jaden Campbell comes back, because they'll be hopefully a similar price, because Keanu Keeney will have a few games and price rises under his belt. But if he doesn't come out looking crash hot, it's a bit of a concern.
Yeah, I mean, if you did do a strategy like that, it could allow you to make a little bit of cash with him and move him on to Jaden Campbell. If he's making cash, though, you'd probably want to hold on to him because he's probably got a lot more cash to make.
Yeah,
I'd imagine. But yeah, if you did go with the strategy of going with a cheapie like that down there, you'd have a lot of extra other money to play with to make the other decisions a bit easier upstairs. It's not for me though.
All right, sweet. That's the trials wrap up. Obviously, we didn't look too far into it, and there were just a limited amount of players we wanted to look into.
Did
So,
we touch on the Indigenous games?
yeah, we
The
did.
Indigenous.
Yeah, we did.
We did,
Xavier
yeah.
Willison, Braden Trindle,
Trent. Yeah. That's right.
Brennan
Yeah,
Smith.
of course. Yeah.
So we're going to go over some antipods today. So I've just got a list of 4 players here. No, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 players here who I'm antipodding at the moment, who are quite highly owned, and we've gone out to our Facebook group on the SuperCoach experience and asked everyone else who they've antipodded. So we'll read them out. But first, I've gone Nathan Cleary, 41.6% owned. He's actually one of the higher owned players in the game. World Club Challenge this Sunday, and 2 weeks later, he's back in Sydney playing he's back in Melbourne playing his first game. PCL injury in the off-season. Round 5 is probably where I want him back against Manly because every time he plays Manly early in the season, that's the game where he busts out a big score for the first time of the year. So in round 6 last year, 158 in round 6, that was his first big score of the year. In 2021, round 4, it was 138. And in round 12 in 2020, he went massive as well. So with Nathan Cleary, he's someone I'm antipodding early in the season, but the priority will be to get to him after his first or second price drop at latest.
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah, I'm anti-potting him as well, but it's not for the sake of anti-potting him. It's kind of just more the fact of it just allows me to do a lot of the other things that were like giving me stress. Like I needed to improve my center wings, and I need to get a better hooker. So that's giving me better balance, and I am feeling okay about it because yes, the Storm's a really tough game. The Storm always win round 1. I can see it being a gritty game. Nathan will probably play reasonably well, but I expect maybe like a 60 or 70. If he does turn up, then good on him, but I can't see it being a massive one. And yeah, there's a bye round 3, so there's enough for me to feel okay about going without him.
Yeah, and I think with Nathan Cleary, I'm not actually like these reasons are just reasons I'm looking at to justify it. If I could fit him in my side because of the price, 100% I would, because the stress of not having him is very stressful. But
well, the first reason I brought him in, Saz, was just because of the whole Jaden Campbell out. I thought, well, they need to go to up to Dylan Brown and to afford that. That was another way. Yeah, that all balanced out. So, yep, fine with it.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not starting with him because he's a bad player or anything. I'm going to be death riding him, but he is someone you got to prioritize. Payne Haas, 750,000. Early on in the season, he was in my side. He was a non-negotiable, and now he's become very negotiable. He hasn't been in any draft sides of mine recently. 37.1% owned. I think the main justification with all these cheapies emerging, 75 for 750k is a lot, considering I can get 50 points for 300k.
Yeah, but Payne Haas will do it, without you having to worry about it. You know what I mean? You can not have to watch the game. You can just open the app at the end of the game, which I don't encourage because watching footy is awesome. But that 70 plus will be there without any worries. For those 30% of people that do have him, I'm jealous of yous. Doesn't work with my dynamic. He was my first picked, but he was also probably my first sacked just because I realised that the balance wasn't going to work for me. So, yeah, I think it's mad though because you probably are going to make up some points on people in the front row, and that's a way for you to help you get ahead. As and you can guarantee those points there. Whereas some of these other positions where we go up and go, I want to spend up in this position, maybe it might not be as hard for them to compete for an equal score. But yeah, past it. Payne Haas said, bang, bang, bang. Thanks for coming.
For sure. Number 3 is Taylor May at 33.2% owned. He's the guy I'm going to downgrade from Karaz potentially, or downgrade up from Hutchinson potentially. Like, he's a guy that is next on the list, it seems, but I'm not super excited about him playing centre. I think he'll do well there, but I'm just not seeing as much value with these 100k cheaper guys. Like, I think the guys who are a bit lower can score, relatively good for their price, so I can upgrade very quickly. I definitely just want to see how he goes first. I don't think he's a bad option, but yeah, I just think 33.2% is a lot.
I haven't moved him out. That high percentage, yeah, I don't think you need to worry about it as a non-owner. I don't think you're going to be putting up massive scores where you're like, wow, what was I thinking not getting him? But I've got him there and I'm pretty happy with it. The thing I like about him is having to play 4 centre wingers in my side. He's one I'm happy to play week in, week out. And I love his work ethic. Like, he just has so many runs, and even at centre, he'll be taking runs from the back like he's a winger. I think when Penrith get good ball down the end, he'll have moments where he just, gets the ball, goes himself, and doesn't even think about passing and finds the line. And then there'll be obviously opportunities for him just to have, be the try assist guy by setting up the final play if it hasn't, you know, been awarded to like the dominant playmaker.
Yep. Kalen Ponga is number 4 for me, 32%. And Harry Grant is number 5 at 27.4%. Early draw, early buy. Ponga, I haven't got really anything against him. It's just more of a balance thing of my side. I've got 2 other fullbacks who I think are going to do well. I don't know.
You've never had him there at all, and I've never heard you sort of sway towards him. Like, is he's got to be the one guy? If you're not that worried about Cleary, do you think he's your main concern? Is he the guy you're worried about the most?
I think he definitely can be a guy who is going to become a concern, but early on in the season, I like you can tell if you're going to be worried about someone, and I'm not super worried about Ponga.
Well, you feel like the team just goes through the motions a bit. He just sort of takes a back seat, chimes in occasionally.
No. He's looking so fit this preseason. I just don't see the big 100 scores straight away, and a lot of people are expecting that. I think all these fullbacks who have high ceilings are going to be very close together early on in the season in terms of averages. So maybe he is someone.
Yeah.
Maybe he is someone I use my current fullbacks as a stepping stone to get to, but yeah, it's more of a balance thing. So I can have.
I'm not trying to talk you into him because I like that there's a bit of difference there
Yeah.
in a lot of our sides and stuff.
I don't think you will talk me into him even if you tried.
For me, I just look at that stat of him averaging 105 in the 15 games when he was at fullback in the back end of the year, and thinking that's 105 that he's averaging. I expect him to carry that over relatively close and not drop off too much. Like if he dropped to 90, it wouldn't be the end of the world because you're going to be getting some. If he's averaging 90, you're probably getting a couple of those decent tons and a few like maybe 70s here and there. I think he's a really good option, bro.
No, but that's exactly how everyone else is looking at it. And if that's the case, then 100% like he's a great option. Like 890k is unders if that's the case. But from the point he played fullback, the Knights needed to win every game to make finals. So he needed to work his ass off to get to the point he was. And he has had a good preseason. I think he will start pretty good. But every other team he was versing, he had a pretty good draw late on in the season last year. Like, every other team he was versing had no hope of finals. So they didn't really, like, the 1%ers weren't there for them. I think early on in the season, Ponga is going to be, he's going to be good, but he's not going to be averaging 100 in the first 5 weeks. I can guarantee you that.
Whew, interesting. All right, cool.
All right, and
bookmark that, you Twitter fans.
Yeah, SC receipts. Make sure to keep that one in your bank. Have you got any that I haven't named?
Not particularly. Like I'm not overly. There's not any player that I've gone. Oh, I'm gonna antipod them because they're heavily owned, and I've got a strong opinion that they're not, that great of a thing. So. Not particularly. I guess the main ones for me is like Harry Grant, Payne Haas, the big names there.
Yep.
Now, Nathan Cleary. Other than that, I guess I'd say the centre wings. If a lot of teams want to go with a premium guy, I'm not going with Val. I'm going with Marju.
So we've gone over to the SuperCoach Experience Facebook group, and we've asked the question, which antipods are people going without? Chris Dyer says he's going without Grant. Lyle Aoud says RTS. I don't know if he's an antipod. He is pretty highly owned considering he's a centre, but I guess we could say we're not going with RTS. But, I mean, after the weekend, he looked good.
I'm not going with him either. I don't think I will land there, but I'm still he's in the maybe basket for sure.
Michael Carver is going with the Canberra cheapies. He's going without. So I think that's an interesting one because realistically...
Seen a few sides doing that.
Yeah,
like none of them.
Realistically, they could come out and all scored 10 every week. So I 100% see why that's happening. I think just with the lack of cheapies, we can be we can't really be picky at this time of year. Andrew Bicknell, KO Weeks, I see that. Adam Climo, Kale Iro. He's still the most owned player in the game, and he's probably not going to get named. Dean Jones says Blake Taff. Interesting antipod. Kurt Shand, Haas and Zeri. So I can understand Haas, but Zeri, any case for an antipod there?
I think there's some people that are just anti-Zeri. You know what I mean? They're just real staunch. They don't like him. I think some people just look for a reason to, someone's done a naughty thing in their past. I don't like that person.
Oh,
But,
yes, he's a bad
they're
boy.
not in my side. And I won't have him anywhere near my SuperCoach side. None of that behaviour in my SuperCoach side. We've got a better culture than that.
My SuperCoach side has a great culture, mate.
So yeah, I'm for him. I don't think he's gonna come out and play like Greg Inglis or anything like that. But I'm happy at him at the price for sure.
I'm excited to have Bronson Cherry this year. Dilbert Parmigiana doesn't have Haas, Curran, Zeri, Linu, Cotter, Iro, Cartwright, Brayley, Hands, Mam. I mean,
You can build a side on that.
Yeah,
there's a whole side.
They're all pretty highly owned players, except maybe Bryce Cartwright. But I think Curran's someone I'm going to sway away from, especially if Salmon gets that spot. And I thought Salmon looked great, so I'll watch him again this week. And if Curran comes out and has a good game, I'll probably maybe reserve that spot for whoever gets the spot, but we'll see. Mam, I mean, we've spoken about Mam. Career game for the grand final last year, but Supercoach-wise, he did do it. Andrew Dwan says, I don't have Hines, Cleary, Haas, Turbo, Grant, or Dillbags.
Wow.
Hines
sounds like a...
No Hines.
No. Yeah, it sounds like a... Yeah, I was just going to keep shut up because we just kept talking over, and then I just thought you can speak next. Yeah, okay. Like, mate, it sounds like just a bunch of young blokes, just getting about. I think he might have a slow start.
Yeah.
I wonder where he's going with there. Like, maybe he could be one of those, just hardcore para fans or something. He's got no Dill Brown though, so I'm thinking maybe he's going with like Moses. If he was a hardcore para fan, he'd definitely have
maybe he's
Dill
going
Brown
with
there
Cleary and Luai. Maybe he's a mad Penrith fan. He's got Cleary.
Yeah, why not?
No,
okay, I thought he said
no Hines, no Deal Bags. I think that's a combination. I can't.
Yeah, that's a pretty common combo, I guess, especially now with Campbell falling down.
Do you, I think because that's such a common combo, is why I'm kind of swaying away from, the likes of Grant, Haas, and stuff. So I can have other combinations within my side. Ponga, in particular, as well. I think antipods are just as important as having pods. I think actually they're probably more important, to be honest, because if you can just get a leg up and someone starts hot who you weren't expecting to, and you've got them, it's not usually a pod. It's usually someone who is, they're 10% owned, and not many of the higher ranked super coaches usually have them. So that's where your difference happens when you've got that player over, say, a Ponga or something like that. Maybe Ponga's not the guy to antipod, but I think you've definitely got to consider it. Don't just have a cookie cutter team, because the cheapies aren't going to make you start well. It's going to be the little variances here and there. If you want to be a part of the show like that next week, head over to the NRL Supercoach Experience Facebook page, and we'll put a call out again next week. We'll have a little question in there, even though next week's going to be massive. It's going to be the first TLT.
Oh, yeah.
First TLT of the year. We only have 2 games to dissect, though, which might not be as massive as past is usually, but nonetheless, it's still going to be pretty massive. And then into the NRL Supercoach non-Vegas party on the Sunday.
Woo. All right.
We'll stop there, I guess.
So wrap her up.
All right. Cheers for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.